Something happens there that's almost supernatural, and I can't claim to know what it is. What I saw can't happen. What I saw is impossible. I'm seeing these scientists, physicists and engineers and stuff, they're all scratching their heads, going, okay, we see this, but they've been struggling for a year now to explain what is actually happening. It's almost, not quite, but almost self-perpetuating. And that's it.
Man, and you've seen this.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Wow, buckle up, because what you're about to dive into is nothing short of revolutionary. I'm talking about technology that sounds like it's straight out of a Nikola Tesla fever dream. Yet it's happening right now, and you won't believe it until you hear it all. This isn't just another fringe idea. This is the real deal, something that could fundamentally change how we think about energy, the environment, and maybe even our place in the universe. It's astonishing that this isn't making headlines across the globe. But don't worry, you're in the right place to get the full scoop. You've heard of solids, liquids, and gases, the three states of matter we all learn about in school. But there's a fourth state of matter that's even more fundamental and powerful: plasma. Plasma is what you get when you heat a gas so much that its electrons break free from their atoms, creating a soup of charged particles. This might sound like something exotic, but plasma is actually everywhere. The sun? It's a giant ball of plasma. The beautiful, shimmering northern lights? That's plasma too. So, why is plasma so special? Well, when you have a bunch of charged particles moving around, they can be influenced by magnetic fields, and they can interact in ways that are very different from anything you see in solids, liquids, or gases. Plasma can form complex and stable structures under the right conditions, especially when exposed to specific frequencies. This is where things start to get really interesting. These structures, known as plasmoids, aren't just random blobs. They have a tendency to self-organize into shapes like toroids, a donut-like shape that's stable and incredibly powerful. Now imagine if we could harness this natural property of plasma, if we could create and control these plasmoids for practical uses. This isn't just theoretical science. It's a working technology that's already showing incredible results. The heart of this technology is something called a thunderstorm generator. It's a machine that creates plasmoids by generating microscopic cavitation bubbles in a fluid. These bubbles are then subjected to rapid changes in pressure, vacuum, and compression, which causes them to collapse in on themselves and form perfect toroidal shapes. These plasmoids are then harnessed and used in a system of tubes and cylinders that have been precisely engineered to amplify their energy and efficiency.
Solid, liquid, gas, degrees of freedom between electrons and neutrons, right? Even in a gas, there's still bonds. But when you get to plasma, they completely break free. So now you have electrons, neutrons become ions, and because they're electrically charged, they can be influenced by magnetic fields. And they also have this tendency to self-organize under the right conditions. If you apply the right frequency, it's like they spontaneously organize into toroidal forms. Visualize a sphere with a North Pole and a South Pole. And now let's say you collapse that sphere so that the North Pole and the South Pole meet at the equator. So now you've got this like indentation in the north and the south. They're like cones, right? What then happens is that you get this electron or ion or both starts spiraling down that funnel, and as it's spiraling down, it's increasing and increasing in rotational velocity. Now, in the northern hemisphere, say, it's going clockwise, and in the southern, it's going counterclockwise. And they meet at the equatorial plane. And that's where something really interesting happens that I don't understand. You've got this accelerating rotation, faster and faster, coming down literally to the microscopic level. And then those two whirling vortices meet each other. Something happens there that's almost supernatural. And I can't claim to know what it is, but that's the basis of the plasma technology.
One of the most fascinating components of this system is something known as a Hilsch vortex tube. This tube can create two vortices, one spinning in one direction and the other spinning in the opposite direction. This setup can actually separate a stream of air into hot and cold ends, with a temperature difference that can reach hundreds of degrees. Imagine feeding in air at room temperature and getting a stream of hot air and a stream of cold air at the other end. This is just one of the amazing feats this technology can achieve. This generator creates powerful energy by bringing together plasmoids moving in opposite directions. When you apply this concept to an internal combustion engine, for example, the results are nothing short of astonishing. Now here's where the story gets really exciting. Randall Carlson, a researcher and scholar known for his work on ancient knowledge and its connections to modern science, got involved with this project. Carlson has spent years exploring how ancient civilizations might have used advanced technologies that we're only beginning to understand today. When he learned about the Thunderstorm generator, he was understandably skeptical, but what he saw changed his mind. Carlson was invited to witness a series of tests on this technology, and what he observed was beyond anything he could have imagined. The tests involved two generators, one as a control and the other equipped with a Thunderstorm generator. These generators were monitored using a variety of instruments, including mass spectrometers and gas analyzers, to measure the exhaust gases. Initially, the readings were typical for a generator. Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and other pollutants were present, while oxygen levels were relatively low. But then something extraordinary happened.
And I was present at some of these tests and saw for myself what was happening. A retired admiral from the Indian Navy flew all the way over from India to be there present at this testing that was at a major industrial laboratory at one of the research labs out in Raleigh, North Carolina. But I was there, saw it working, saw two generators, a control generator and one with the technology. I watched as the engineers and the scientists there calibrated them both. And then I was the one who went up and started both generators. They're both in two separate rooms. Started the technology on one of the generators. And so we've got readouts. We've got gas analyzers there, probes going up into the exhausts of the generators. We've got a couple of guys there with mass spectrometers hooked up. So we've got multiple ways of determining what's coming out of the exhaust pipes of these two generators. I go up there and I flip the switch. You can sit there, I can watch the mass spectrometer, I can watch the gas analyzer. Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and oxygen were in percentages. Methane and nitrogen oxide were in parts per million. So basically, oxygen is at a 4 or 5% coming out of the exhaust, which is about typical for a generator like that. You got, I think, 12% of CO2, CO, etc. So as you're watching it, here's what happens. The carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and nitrogen oxides start going down. Oxygen starts coming up. CO2 zeroes out. Carbon monoxide zeroes out. The nitrogen oxides go down to just a few parts per million, as does the other hydrocarbons. Oxygen tops out at over 20, I don't remember exactly, between 20 and 21%, which is optimum percentage of oxygen for pure unpolluted air. So what is now coming out of the generator with the technology is pure unpolluted air.
No kidding.
On top of that, what it's doing, it's capturing everything that's coming out, and it's feeding it back into the Thunderstorm generator. So in order to get the plasma separation to occur, I think you have to get it up to 700 and some degrees. But once you do that, it's almost, not quite, but almost self-perpetuating. And you just have to replenish the water. I forget, however few hundred hours that it runs, you have to replenish the water. And that's it.
Man, and you've seen this.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. And I've known, multiple people now that have seen it. The admiral, he took it back to India. India is seriously looking at it and as a retrofit for their Navy. The big industrial scale application on the 300 kilowatt Perkins generator on the substation in London. I mean, they're testing it, and they may start retrofitting all of their because it doubles to triples the efficiency.
Let's pause for a moment to really appreciate what this means. We're talking about a technology that can be retrofitted onto existing engines, whether in cars, power plants, or industrial machinery, that not only makes them more efficient, but also eliminates harmful emissions. Instead of pumping pollutants into the atmosphere, these engines could actually purify the air. Imagine what this could mean for cities choked by smog, or for industries struggling to meet environmental regulations. It's a game changer. But how does it work? That's the million-dollar question, and even the scientists involved are still trying to fully understand it. What seems to be happening is that the plasmoids created by the Thunderstorm generator are inducing a kind of transmutation at the atomic level. The harmful pollutants in the exhaust are somehow being converted into harmless or even beneficial substances, with oxygen being one of the primary byproducts. This isn't just filtration or scrubbing, it's a fundamental transformation of matter. This technology doesn't stop at cleaning the air. The implications are much broader. For example, there's potential for applications in space travel, where managing energy and resources efficiently is critical. Imagine spacecraft equipped with this technology, able to convert waste into useful energy or even breathable air. Or consider submarines which operate in environments where air quality is a constant concern. With this technology, they could potentially stay submerged longer and operate more efficiently. And it doesn't stop there. The inventor and those working with him are exploring even more ambitious possibilities. One idea that's been floated is the conversion of hydrocarbon-based pollution in the oceans into protein. This could have enormous implications for environmental cleanup and even food production. The potential applications of this technology are vast, and we're only scratching the surface. Now let's talk a bit about the history of this technology and how it came to light. The inventor, who has been working on this for years, realized early on that what he was dealing with was something extraordinary, but he also knew that revolutionary technologies like this often face significant resistance, whether from established industries, regulatory bodies, or even from the scientific community itself. We've seen this story before with other groundbreaking inventions. Think of Nikola Tesla's work on wireless energy or Stanley Meyer's water-powered car engine. These technologies were either suppressed or forgotten, buried by the weight of skepticism and vested interests. To avoid this fate, the inventor decided to take a different approach. Instead of keeping his work secret or seeking traditional patents, he decided to open source everything. He spent years documenting his research, writing up notes, schematics, and diagrams, and preparing to share it all with the world. The idea was simple. By making the technology available to everyone, he could ensure that it wouldn't be buried or suppressed. Anyone with the skills and resources could replicate and build upon his work, pushing the technology forward in ways that might not be possible if it were controlled by a single entity. Randall Carlson played a crucial role in bringing this technology to the public's attention. He mentioned it during a conversation on the Joe Rogan Experience, one of the most popular podcasts in the world. This was a significant moment because it marked the first time that this information was shared with a large audience. The response was overwhelming. People were fascinated by the idea that a technology like this could exist, and that it might have connections to ancient knowledge and practices.
And you think that they had this back in ancient times?
Some iteration of it, I suspect. When you create these vortexes, you start this spiral motion inside the sphere, and then it travels down. So you got an outer cylinder and an inner cylinder. And one vortex is inside the outer, but outside the inner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Then the next vortex going in the opposite direction, and the opposite spin is inside the next cylinder.
Okay.
Now, in order to transition from, like if you have a sphere and you just cut a round hole in it and you stick a cylinder onto it, it's got this like sharp edge, and that would induce turbulence that would affect this coherent, organized vortex that forms. So you have to have a transition between the cylinder and the sphere to prevent that turbulence from being introduced. Experimentation has shown that one angle seems to be optimum for minimizing the introduction of the turbulence. What do you think that angle is? 51.84 degrees. Slope to base of Khufu's pyramid. Another coincidence? I don't know. But that leads me to think, okay, I've suspected all along that these pyramids and these structures are part of an ancient technological system.
Before Carlson's appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, Mazda, the well-known car manufacturer, had already expressed interest in this plasma technology. The inventor had been working with Mazda and had even signed a non-disclosure agreement with them to explore the potential applications of the technology. However, Carlson wasn't fully aware of this agreement when he mentioned the technology on the podcast. This led to some unexpected complications, as revealing the technology publicly could have interfered with ongoing discussions and agreements. Shortly after the podcast aired, Carlson received a call from Roland Perry, one of Australia's best-selling authors and an investigative reporter with high-level connections. Perry informed Carlson that by mentioning the technology on the podcast, he had inadvertently outed the inventor, potentially putting the entire project at risk. There was concern that this sudden exposure could lead to backlash or attempts to suppress the technology. But as it turned out, the publicity had an unexpected positive effect. Within a few days, Mazda's stock price actually went up, showing that there was strong interest in the potential of this technology.
When I was there at this testing, I'm seeing these scientists, physicists and engineers and stuff, they're all scratching their heads, going, okay, we see this, but they've been struggling for a year now to explain what is actually happening. There's a fellow by the name of Bob Grenier, who I think has probably come as close as anybody. He's head of the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. Martin Fleischmann was one of the pioneers in these alternative energies, particularly working with plasma. Brilliant mind. He came on board about a year ago. And he was there was a Tesla Tech conference in last summer in Albuquerque. My pal and partner in howtube.com did the live streaming out to a couple of thousand people around the world that paid to be able to witness. And what they did in front of a live audience on a stage is they brought in a generator and retrofitted it right there. As a result of that, several things happened. From there, it went to this research lab in North Carolina. From there, it went to a conference in Zurich where it was presented. Malcolm then went and spent 2 months in India demonstrating and building prototypes. So, I mean, this is the phase where it's at now. There's a really interesting video that I would recommend watching. It's an interview with the gentleman is named George Lush. He works in high-performance metals. He contracts, he's third generation. Their company, I think, was founded in 1951. He's contracts to the aerospace industry and NASA and all of this, these high-performance alloys and stuff. And he did the annealing of this Thunderstorm generator in England. And there's an interview, like a 20-minute interview with him afterwards, and it's really worth watching because he says, I'm the biggest skeptic around. And what I saw can't happen. What I saw is impossible, but I saw it. He's there with his, he had a thermal analyzer. We've got videos of him here and there testing as this stream of stuff is moving through these cylinders and pipes and stuff. And literally with 4 inches, the temperature can change by over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And he says, this is impossible. He says, I kept testing and testing and testing with my thermal analyzer, and it came up the same every time. He says, we're just at the beginning of trying to figure out what the hell is happening here. But then he went in to discuss the potential applications of it. Now, one of the big questions is okay, when you do look at these readouts, okay, carbon dioxide, the other things go down. In some cases, zero out. In other cases, it doesn't zero out entirely, but it's only a small fraction of what it had been. Meanwhile, the oxygen's gone up. So then the question, okay, where did the carbon dioxide go? Where did the carbon monoxide go? Well, it looks like it somehow got transmuted on the atomic level into oxygen. And how bizarre that the concentration of oxygen coming out of the exhaust pipes is the optimum oxygen that we would want for unpolluted, breathable air. And that's what's coming out. And George Howard was there. He got down with his mouth right there and started huffing the plasmoids or whatever coming out, to show, yeah. He did the same thing at the Tesla Tech conference in Albuquerque. We've got it on video, him getting down there and huffing. It's a running joke now. And they initially started up the generator on the stage, and once the generator got warmed up, the fumes coming out got so strong that they had to move the generator out onto the loading dock. Then they turned the technology on. And within a few minutes, instead of all this pollutant and stuff coming out, it's air.
The story of this technology is still unfolding, and there's much more to learn. But one thing is clear. This is a discovery with the potential to change the world. It's a story that combines the wisdom of the ancients with the cutting-edge science of today, and it's opening up possibilities that we're only just beginning to understand. In conclusion, what you've just heard is more than just an interesting tale. It's a glimpse into a future where technology could transform our relationship with the environment, with energy, and with each other. The Thunderstorm generator is just the beginning. As we continue to explore the possibilities of plasma technology and its connections to ancient knowledge, who knows what other discoveries we might make? The future is bright, and it's up to us to embrace these new technologies, to push the boundaries of what we think is possible, and to create a world where science and technology work in harmony with nature. Whether you're a scientist, an engineer, or just someone who cares about the future of our planet, this is a moment to get involved, to stay curious, and to help bring this technology out of the shadows and into the light. The possibilities are endless, and the journey is just beginning.